Uptown Link Up. Yes, sir. Hello?
Hello.
Is this Uptown Link Up?
Yes, it is.
Oh, best program ever.
We're here with a very, very special guest on our show, Uptown Link Up. Today, we're speaking to Mr. Charles Rangel, Congressman, the chairman of the House of Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Charles Rangel, good day and welcome to the Uptown Link Up show.
I'm glad to be with you, but I want to make it abundantly clear that I have retired from the United States Congress for 4 years. So people may be calling me about Ways and Means issues, and I want to tell them that's on you, not me.
Black People Headquarters is comprised of Pan-African teams and groups that advocates for the African continent's control over all its assets and economic affairs. A black-controlled Africa without borders and freedom to travel across our continent. With one currency, one army, and true independence. Black People Headquarters also advertise products and services for radio and television as we do for social media.
Well, I was raised in poverty on Lenox Avenue. I enlisted into the military after World War II, found myself in Korea, got shot up a couple of times, picked up a couple of medals, but I didn't pick up any skills at all to transfer to civilian life. And quite frankly, I had not completed high school. But I did go to receive benefits from the Veterans Administration, and I completed high school, New York University, St. John's Law School, but most of all, I married a very beautiful, educated woman, and I've never looked back.
You are a activist, I should say an activist for people of my complexion, of the black race. You would see yourself as such too as well. You have been associated in some ways with the Marcus Garvey movement. I'm not sure, could you just enlighten us?
I was too young to fully appreciate the work of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. I did have an uncle that would attend the meetings, but he used to drink so much liquor that nobody ever knew what he was talking about. But surprisingly, after I got an education, Marcus Garvey just made a lot of sense. If you have been kidnapped or stolen or taken out of a country where you were the majority, forced into slavery against your will, abused, lynched, and mistreated, it would seem to me that one of the things that you would want to do is to change your circumstances. And in order to do that, you have to believe that you are somebody and you have enough self-awareness to improve not only your life, but that of your children. But the pain of slavery was not only the loss of life and dignity, it was destruction of a culture. And so you find people in the United States who look like you and me that know no African country, no African history, no African songs, don't know what African beauty is. In other words, it wasn't just a physical rape. It was the rape of your mind to take everything away, even your name, as Malcolm X has said often. And while it may not have been feasible for Black people, then called Negroes, to buy a ship and to return to Africa, because you have to know where you're going back to. And I don't know where Marcus Garvey had planned for us on the other side of the Atlantic. But I do know his charisma, his education, his leadership was so frightening to the then told history of the United States that the first Black FBI agent was hired by J. Hoover in order to get information on Marcus Garvey. And all the time that I was in the Congress, I was advocating that indictment should have been set aside, as was the reputation of J. Edgar Hoover. It was wrong, it was immoral, and it shouldn't have happened. And on our side of the question, all Marcus Garvey was saying, that you're somebody, be proud of it. And if that's a sin, I don't see it.
It is a deep-rooted notion that we here in Jamaica, we have that feeling of empowered Marcus Garveyism.
Well, let me tell you one thing. I'm a long-time friend of the Caribbean and Jamaica and Joshua and the leaders there. And one of the first things I wanted to do was to have a monument set up for Marcus Garvey, because of my constituents in the United States that had Jamaican backgrounds. But Michael was very helpful, because without getting into the history of Jamaica and the other islands that had been brainwashed, but also were slaves, Michael wasn't loved by Jamaicans. So when we were able to raise enough money in St. Anne's Parish to put a statue up there, I was so pleased to be there with Michael Manley as Jamaica, even before America realized that they may not have known what part of Africa, but they were proud of where they came from.
Right. I want to bring forward Mr. Dean Roden. I hear he wants to say a little bit. Mr. Roden?
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. When it comes to Marcus Garvey, when I visit Capitol Hill and I see in your office, you are the only person that tried to implement laws that Marcus Garvey be taught in the United States of America. So you have really not just talk the talk, but you have performed these historical things for the teaching of Marcus Garveyism be taught in the United States. The entire Jamaica, we want to salute you for the hard work that you have done, you know, and you have not stopped doing it, you know. Despite you said you have retired, you have continually been doing it, and the baton we're passing on, you have been empowering young people, and that's why, you know, we can see a, you know, demonstration of what we have learned. We have passed it on to the younger generation. So once again, you're not just a talk about Marcus Garvey. I can tell the world when I go on Capitol Hill, I see you have passed laws, you have had literature. When I go to the Jamaican embassy, I see your pamphlet in the ambassador's office, Ambassador Johnson. So it's you, sir, and we salute you at 90, going very strong. You're still looking sharp.
I'm not a very modest person, and I appreciate the kind remarks, but I'm patriotic. And it seems to me, for my country to be stronger, they have to understand the contributions of all that people have made, because we are so far away from what the Constitution of the United States say. So that if Jewish people have the Torah and Mormons have their religion as to who they are, and Italians can talk about Italy, and foreigners can talk about their hometown, don't you think it makes sense for America to be able to let everybody enjoy a little bit of listening, not only to the history, but also to some of the fantastic myths that people have an opportunity to pass on, which shows that when God made us, He made us in different forms, with different languages and different cultures. And Malcolm has only said one thing, and that is, count me in or we'll leave me.
Miss Wayne Richardson, would love to ask you a couple of questions too as well.
Afternoon again, Congressman.
Hi.
Retired. I am specifically interested. You said at 16 you were a dropout and you had joined the army. How did that help to mold you into the man you are in having discipline and putting forward such phenomenal legislation as Congressman and serving the country going forward?
Well, like more and most minorities and people who are living in poverty, when I found out that one of the slogans they had in the army was for food, take all you want and eat all you take, I said, you must be kidding. But really, my brother had served in World War II, and he enlisted before Pearl Harbor. And I saw how much my mother appreciated the allotment federal checks that she would receive. And I was 17, and I figured that I could make a better contribution to my mom. As I saw it as a job and not an act really of patriotism, when I was notified in June 25th, 1950, and I was 20 years old at Fort Lewis, Washington, that my outfit was commanded by the president to join with 22 other nations to fight North Korean communists I had no idea who the Koreans were or what the dispute was about. And I had a pretty hard time of it, getting wounded, being there, sub-zero weather. But when I was discharged and found out that the only thing the Army taught me that I could put down on a resume was how to kill people, how to keep my rifle in working order, how to fire 155 millimeter howitzer guns. But I still didn't have that high school diploma. And so when I went to the VA, I didn't go there for an education. I went there because I needed help. And it took almost 6 months before I convinced them that even though I didn't know anybody that had gone to college, that my grandfather, that is my mother's father, worked as an elevator operator in the New York City Criminal Court building. He loved judges, he loved lawyers, and he loved prosecutors. And I wanted so badly to impress him. And quite frankly, between going to school, I had a chance to work at the world famous Hotel Teresa, which was right in the middle of Harlem. Black stars, celebrities were not permitted to go downtown, and all of the entertainment was at our Apollo Theater across the street. I learned more as a desk clerk than all of my training at all. And while I was in law school in the 50s, I was involved in the civil rights struggle with Andrew Young and John Lewis and others. And the more I gained in terms of knowledge and prestige, the more contribution I could make for God, just saving my life and the loss of so many of my buddies. But even more than that, and going south on some of the buses and seeing how cruelly Americans were treating Black folks in these I knew that to justify my existence, I had to do something. So I marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. I marched from Selma to Montgomery with my bad feet. But more importantly, I was appointed by Robert Kennedy as an assistant United States attorney in the Justice Department. And I could really then see that there were two Americas: the beautiful America that was taught in history and the America that was built because she had free slave labor. And so, unlike some people, I said, I'm gonna try to do something about it. And I got involved in politics, lost some elections, won some elections, but I was elected to the New York State Legislature. I was tutored by J. Raymond Jones, who comes from the Virgin Islands, Percy Sutton, David Dinkins, Basil Patterson, and so many people who appreciated this guy from Lenox Avenue on 32nd Street, appreciated that I came back home And then when I ran for Congress, I'm one of the few people can say that I've never had a bad day since November 30th, 1950, when I was shot in Korea. God has been very, very good to me.
Black People Headquarters is comprised of Pan-African teams and groups that advocates for the African continent's control over all its assets and economic affairs. A black-controlled Africa without borders and freedom to travel across our continent. With one currency, one army, and true independence. Black People Headquarters also advertise products and services for radio and television as we do for social media.
Beautiful. We also have Mr. Donovan Longmore with us. Would love to ask you a question or two, Mr. Congressman. Mr. Longmore.
Yes, sir. Former Congressman, I'm here and I'm enthralled by the knowledge and the wisdom that you bestowed upon us. You spoke about Marcus Garvey, one of my favorites, and the fact that Marcus, being the first national hero of Jamaica, left us with something that said, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you're coming from. But in reality, it seems like only the Rastafarians are following, in his footsteps in terms of what we want to achieve, with all the police brutality, the George Floyd. In this time and era, what advice would you give people like us, the young ones who are coming up trying to make a difference in society in terms of letting people understand where they need to go and how they need to achieve it?
Well, are you talking about in the Caribbean and Jamaica?
All over the Caribbean, here in the United States, because black people seems to be at a loss for unity.
If I had any idea how that could be achieved, I wouldn't have spent 60 years getting beat up and doing the things that I've been trying to do. But I know one thing, no matter what you're talking about, self-esteem is so important that without it, you can't go anywhere. And unfortunately, those people who relied on human beings as slaves belittle people's self-esteem to the point that some of them started to believe that they were in fact inferior. Marcus Garvey wasn't saying that black was better or that he preferred to be. All he was saying was that we are all equal and given the same opportunity, we can all compete. And so when you look at United States history, you know from the beginning that not only were you not considered as a people that will enjoy these benefits, but the slaveholders were the actual people drafting the document. And so before a body or a group or community can be free, its mind has to be free. And when I think of the thousands of colored people and Negroes and African Americans who had this pride in the South and who died for it and what they suffered for it, it means that the struggle has to continue, because you can't give up after so many people made sacrifice. You can't give in and you can't give out. Now, we're a young country here, and our independence compared with the history of most of the world is very limited. So one might be able to say that from slavery we even have one of us, Barack Obama, to presidency. But as long as the lack of education, health care, and self-esteem exists for people of color, and the United States more and more are going to be inhabited by more people of color, then we have to be organized. We have to be educated. You can be a patriotic and an American by telling the truth about the birth of your nation and the things that you're doing to improve equality and justice for all of those people. And the same way Jamaican young people are shooting and killing each other in Jamaica and doing it in the United States and in my congressional district, is because no one really told them how important their lives were and the contribution they could make. And the tragedy of slavery, as I said before, is not so much the kidnapping and the brutality, it's the feeling that you're not deserving. And so pride, you can't teach. But wherever there's a march, wherever there's people, whether it's in Jamaica or any other part of the world, there's no way for me to believe that God wanted to have the disparity between people of wealth and people who are sick and poor and are deserving of better treatment.
Black People Headquarters is comprised of Pan-African teams and groups that advocates for the African continent's control over all its assets and economic affairs. A black-controlled Africa without borders and freedom to travel across our continent. With one currency, one army, and true independence. Black People Headquarters also advertise products and services for radio and television as we do for social media.
We have seen the news, we watch the news, we have seen, what is happening in America today with our race, black people. We have here the history. But how could you describe the days of Martin Luther King and now? Could you give us a comparison?
All of the time that I served under the leadership of Reverend King and his people that worked with him, the biggest struggle that we had were those blacks who did not fully appreciate the importance of nonviolence. And I spent 4 years being trained in violence. It was very difficult for me to submit myself to have somebody with a baton just beat me up because of my color. Fortunately for me, I graduated from law school in 1960. And this was the time that Dr. King was working his way out of the South, moving to Illinois, spreading some of the things that Marcus Garvey was talking about, and even talking about the immorality of the war in Vietnam. Dr. King, Barack Obama, Malcolm X, Adam Clayton Powell. From time to time, these personalities move us a little bit further toward our goal. But any person that's willing to give up their lives, improve the quality of their people, like Dr. King, is a very, very special person to me.
We are still working here, myself and Mr. Lawmore, as a part of the diaspora, continue your legacy about Marcus Garvey.
Well, continue your good work, because Marcus Garvey is more than a hero. He's an idea. And if you don't think much of yourself, it'd be difficult for other people to think more of you.
Thank you, Congressman Rangel.
Thank you all.
Being
I
here
enjoyed
again
being
with
with
us.
you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I like Uptown Link Up. Yes, sir. Hello? Is this Uptown Link Up? Oh, best program ever.